So let's start recording. So welcome to the Hustings for External Comms. I'll try and keep this quick just because I know that you have a time constraint. So would you like to start with an opening statement and then we'll open the questions to the room? Cool.
Okay. I'm Jonathan Kent. I've been a member of the Green Party for way too long. I'm only 25, but you can see the toll it has taken on me. I have spent most of my life in media and communications. I've been a journalist for much of my career. I worked initially in local newspapers, cutting my teeth, went to work for the BBC, was a political reporter at Westminster, a foreign correspondent in Southeast Asia, made programs for the BBC since. I've made a series about bread back in 2012. And another one I pitched and made was called Becoming British Chinese, because I have quite strong links with East Asian community and felt that it was a community not really explored, actually, almost invisible on the BBC. It's quite odd. So we made a radio program presented by a young British-born Chinese journalist just out of college, which is fantastic. For about the last 15 years, actually going back to the 90s as well, but for the last 15 years, most of my career has been focused on communications, both with NGOs, but a lot of growth companies, tech startups, and so on. Many of them doing very cool things. And in terms of the Green Party, first stood for the party in '89 for Oxfordshire County Council, the elections in which Caroline got her first seat. And since then, I've been chair of the South East Party, briefly run for Parliament 4 times, conducted a media review for the party in about 2010, 2011, and done various other things. In the 2015 elections, you may remember that we were struggling to get involved in the debates. And Rupert Reed and I came up with well, actually, I came up with and he finessed it. The What Are You Afraid Of Boys campaign, where we ran a billboard around Westminster, got lots of press for, a poster with Natalie and Caroline on it, crossing their arms and smiling because it was going to be just the guys having a debate. And we got in the debate. And I think 2015 was our best ever result at that stage until 2024. So, yeah, there you go. That's a bit about me. Basically, a communication specialist, which is
Cool.
why I'm running for this post.
Cool. I'll head into questions. I'll just start with the first one, and I must admit I'll quickly just dash away, but I'll let you answer the question. Kate Hatton from Wolverhampton Green Party. Do you plan to attend comms planning meetings, and do you plan to engage with special interest groups to ensure that important events, days of recognition, and other campaigns are properly platformed, given that we have very small staff team on comms?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I want to do with our comms strategy generally is find an overarching message which is inclusive. I threw one out there just as an example, which was no one left behind. It doesn't have to be that, but an overarching theme like that means that you can focus it on any group that needs to be spotlighted, whether that be migrants and asylum seekers, whether it be queer people, whether it be people in really economically marginalized areas. So you can reframe a slogan like that. Nowhere left behind. But I think the key thing that I want to do through that sort of approach, I need to stress that I'm not really looking to impose any of my values on the party. I see that as really coming from conference in terms of policy, from the leadership, from GPEx. My job as external comms coordinator is very much going to be bringing my professional skills to make sure the message is heard as we intend it to be heard, and lands. But I want to see a message that is inclusive. So we talk about when we talk about human rights, it's not divorced from people's own experience. They realize that we stand with the LGBTIQ plus community because human rights, right? And those same human rights accrue to them too because they're human. It's because all of us, right? No one left behind. And I think if we can build an understanding that we're not picking out particular interest groups to defend them because somehow they're special, rather than they have rights too and their rights are necessary, they need protection or support at the moment. I think that will stop or at least throw a certain amount of chaff in the face of reform who are trying to make out that people on the progressive side of politics only care about special interest groups and don't care, as they would put it, about regular working people, inverted commas. And I think there's through history there have been vast amounts of solidarity when people have successfully made the connection between one group and another, and it's plain that it's everybody's fight. And one of my friends uses a metaphor of the fire brigade. It's like the fire brigade there is to protect everyone. You don't shout fire unless somebody's house is on fire. Yeah. So we're shouting fire about a particular group or situation because their house is on fire. It's not like we don't care about the houses that aren't on fire. It's just right now they're not on fire, if that makes sense.
Cool. Thanks for that question. The next one that was asked is by Rachel, and she asks, what would you change about parties' current external communications and why?
I'll this is probably not a helpful answer, but it's a sensible answer. I haven't sat down with our comms team yet and gone through their resources, their experience, their strategy. I mean, I see what's happening at the moment and I have thoughts, but until I've done that, I'm not going to start coming up with a plan because that has to be done in conjunction with GPEx leadership and the comms team, right? So the first stage that you do with any client is a discovery phase. Otherwise, you're just bumming your gums for nothing. One thing that I do feel as a consumer of our output at the moment is our messages are quite diffuse. We are talking about everything. And no, there are themes emerging. There is obviously concern about inequality. There's obviously the perennial concern about climate and the planet. Um, but in terms of it being a coherent message, I don't think it feels a bit scattergun at the moment. But I'm reserving judgment until I've had a proper look. Assuming, of course, you vote for me. If you vote for somebody else, they'll have a proper look.
Cool. The next question here is by Darius from the South Tyneside Green Party. And he asks, what would you do to improve our comms? Well, I guess that's actually what we've just asked, actually.
Um,
Uh, unless you want
okay,
to.
it's not exactly the same question, but I'll give a very short answer, which is once we've done a bit of an appraisal of where we are at the moment, one of the things I want to do is challenge the broadcasters over the share of broadcast that we get because it doesn't seem quite right. And what I think we should be doing is demanding of Ofcom with an FOI, and if Ofcom don't play ball, judicial review to find out the formula that broadcasters are using to determine how much coverage people are getting, right? They can, if it's on the poll at last general election, fine. If it's on number of councillors, fine. If it's on current polling, slightly iffy, but because it relies on polling agencies being accurate, but better than nothing. If it's make it up as they go along, not cool. So that would be one. Building relationships with journalists, working with whoever we vote for, whether that be Zach on the one hand or Ellie and Adrian on the others. Both sets of candidates have all the candidates have strengths when it comes to communications. All of them, I think, would probably be very frank, would have areas where they could improve. And obviously, this is a game I've been in for 35 years, so I'd be working with people to try and improve their handling of media, bring out the things that we really need to bring out. I think with Zach, he's got a very powerful message. I'd amp up the warmth, so people can connect with him, and there is that sort of like, who would you invite to your barbecue party or your vegan barbecue party? Um, which is why some people voted, I think, for Bush over Gore in 2000. It's a perennial. Things like that. With Adrian and Ellie, bit punchier maybe, bit harder hitting. No more Mr. Nice Green once in a while.
Cool. The next question in chat here is from Rachel again. She asks, what do you think about previous choices for party spokespeople, and would you change the process for selection in any way?
I'm actually not quite sure what the process is at the moment because about going back about 15 years, I introduced a motion to conference um, that the party would vote for spokespeople because I figured that the key that if you think about it, it's like if you have your spokespeople, in those days it was chosen by external comms coordinator. It's a bit like Alistair Campbell choosing, back in Blair's day, choosing the Labour front bench. Yeah. I mean, that's struck me as potty. I think we would do better as an electorate to choose the pool from which people are selected. So, top 15 candidates or whatever get to speak on something, and then it's down to the leadership and GPEx to decide what they speak on, which is kind of how Parliament works. You don't necessarily get to choose your brief, but it's good discipline. There were people who objected, said, "Oh, I only want to talk about railways," and it's like, well, you're going to be a great MP, aren't you? I mean, he was a really lovely guy, actually. I like him a lot, but he only liked railways. And it's like, yeah, it's like yet another speech from Bob about railways. It's like after a while, people go, yeah, Bob, but what about, inequality? Anyway, so I think I would like to see a more competitive framework. But I, again, I would really urge us as a party to think about this. If we want to get places, we shouldn't surrender our principles. I mean, that I think is vital. At the same time, I do think we need to be careful about making um, these sorts of internal elections about a beauty parade or even sort of like a purity test, because it is basically a job interview. Obviously, if somebody is well out of touch with Green Party core values, well, yeah, but what are they doing standing for something in a party they don't really agree with? But ultimately, let's try and build a culture where we are actually quite focused on winning and getting shit done.
Yeah, cool. The next question here is from Annie, and I'm not 100% sure if this is response to something that you mentioned in the previous question. Please correct me if that's the case or not, Annie. But they ask, are normal working people, not queer, disabled from the global majority or other marginalized demographics?
Sorry, could you?
Yeah,
I'm not
so
quite getting the gist of that. What's the question?
yeah, feel free to chime in if you want to provide any more context, Annie. But they ask, are normal
Yeah,
working people not do you want to just ask the question?
yes, thank you. Sorry. Earlier you made a comment about needing to appeal to normal working people. And so the question is, are normal working people not queer, disabled from the global majority of other marginalized demographics? You made it sound like special interest groups aren't normal working people.
Um, yeah, everybody's normal working people. 99% of us work for a living, but there's a huge section of the electorate out there that do not see themselves as part of one of these groups that one of the groups that we often very visibly align with and talk about what they're going through. Um, so part of the rhetoric that Reform are putting through is trying to set up their demographic, which doesn't identify quite so strongly, I suspect, with the interest groups that we often defend against those groups. And something that Carla pointed out recently in an Instagram post that really struck her was a lot of the anti-trans groups are receiving large amounts of money. A lot of wedge issue groups on the right are receiving large amounts of money from oil interests in the States. And so I'm just suggesting we're cognizant of building bridges between different causes because there are people who don't identify with those causes. I'm not saying that, those of us who are queer or disabled or um, or global majority or whatever are not normal working people, but that is probably how they are viewed by the kind of people who are listening to Reform the whole time. So without
For
splitting hairs over
clarity,
it.
could you clarify what you see as those demographics that are not?
That are not what?
The demographics that aren't what would you clarify as normal working people then?
Okay, let's not use the phrase normal working people, but I'm just using it in as much as that is the way that it's set up. Okay. When the Daily Mail talk about normal working people, they are talking about people who don't belong to special interest groups and just see themselves as regular wage earners living in their suburban house or a small town or what have you with a standard nuclear family. It's
Great.
this is
Thanks. That's
this
a
is
great clarification.
okay. So this is the way that the right are trying to define the culture wars, and we've got to break that down, is all I'm saying. That there aren't one group who are not normal working people vis-a-vis groups not in that. There are just 99% of us who have to work for a living, and all our rights are linked.
I'll pass the chair. Thank you.
Cool. I think you said that there was a hard stop at 20 past, unless you want to take one or two more questions.
Where are we? Very quick question or two, and I'll scoot.
We'll do one question and then your closing statement, and then
You
if
have a
anyone
good
else wants
shot.
to contact you, you have your email address there for people to contact. The Kim has a follow-on question actually from Annie's, which I think I'll just ask because I think it's fair to
Oh,
do. Following on from Annie's question, is there a significant chunk of the disabled population that are unable to Sorry, there is a significant chunk of the disabled population that are unable to work. With party comms so often pointed to normal working people, would you communicate and engage with the disabled community?
yeah, of course. I mean, I have well, a number of friends very close to me who are disabled. It's again, I can only stress that we need to be building inclusive messaging, which can be focused on any group in need. You know, throw the spotlight where it's needed and emphasize the universality of our needs and our rights. It's not rocket science, but it's just framing messaging in a way that doesn't make it sound that we're only interested in a section of the population, right? It's about reminding people that we're very much all in it together. Hence, my example, no one left behind. Because if we're leaving any group behind, whether they are in an economically marginal area, whether because of their orientation, whether because of their living with disabilities, whether because they're from a minoritized group, global majority group, or whatever, you know, there are neighbors, our friends, our siblings, our lovers, you know, fellow citizens, right? And that should be enough. And if they're not citizens, maybe they're aspiring to be that one day when they've come here seeking refuge from elsewhere. It's about not allowing the likes of Farage to divide one group from another. And I think that needs to be central to our messaging and how we handle it.
Cool. And then, yeah, just aware of the time. So your closing statement?
Okay. Right, I'll just say my goodbyes then. Thank you very much for listening. It's very kind of you. Thanks for running the Hustings. I hope you find them useful and interesting. And thank you.
Cool. Thanks.